Welcome to my first Show Me. This one is about relations and functions. We've got two objectives. The first one is to learn how to determine whether a relation is a function or not. And the second is to graph relations and functions and accomplish the same goal using something that we call the vertical line test. First, let's define all these different sets we're going to be talking about. A relation is simply a set of ordered pairs. A relation might be a set like this one, the set containing 0, 1, and 1, 2, and 1, 3, and 2, 4. There you have it, your first relation. Relations could have lots and lots of points, or as few as 1 point. Either way you slice it, a relation is simply a set of ordered pairs. Notice that each of the points in a relation have two coordinates. The first coordinate is called the x-coordinate. The second one's called the y-coordinate. In science, when we use relations, a lot of times the x value is what we would call the independent variable, and the y value is the dependent variable. The independent variable is something that we control. We use different inputs in our science experiments. Then the y value would represent something that we measure or observe to see what we can determine about a real-life situation. The domain is a set that we can make out of any relation. The domain is a set of all the x values. For the relation we're looking at right here, then, the domain would be the set containing 0, 1, and 2. No other numbers appear as first element in any of our ordered pairs but those three. These would be the inputs into a science experiment, the numbers that you would put in and then do observations, the independent variable. The range is the set of y values, the set of outputs. So for this relation, there are 4 outputs, 1, 2, 3, and 4. These are all the numbers that came out when the various x values were put in. That set again is called the range. A function is a special kind of relation. We prefer to work with functions when we can. One of the most important reasons we do is that computers work very well with functions. They don't handle certain kinds of relations very well. A function is a relation, so it's still a set of points. But in a function, every x value is paired with exactly one y value. If you see an x value twice in a function, it'll be paired with the same y value both times. If you see an x value paired with different y values in any relation, it's not a function. If you look really closely at the relation we've had on the screen, you'll see it's not a function. The reason it's not a function is that 1 is paired with 2, but it's also paired with 3. Well, that's not a function. So functions reveal themselves pretty easily. Unfortunately, some relations have lots and lots of ordered pairs, so it's a little harder to figure out what's going on. I'm going to show you 2 ways to distinguish them using pictorial representations of the relation. Here are the numbers from our relation organized into a domain and a range. Little ovals make these Venn diagrams. What we're going to do now is we're going to characterize our relation as a mapping. 0, as you recall, was mapped to 1 in an ordered pair. That line represents our ordered pair 0, 1. In the same way, 1 was mapped to 2. But remember, 1 was also mapped to 3. There were 2 ordered pairs. One that had 1, 2, the other one had 1, 3. That's how we represent those with those lines. Finally, 2 was mapped to 4. This is another way to write the same relation we've been talking about. Each of those lines represents one of the ordered pairs that were in the original set we drew on the board here. Again, whenever you see something like this, where a number is paired from the domain with 2 numbers from the range, that's a big clue that while this is definitely a relation, it isn't a function. It can't be a function because one of the x values is paired with more than one y value. Remember the definition. In a function, every x value is paired with exactly 1. Well, 2 isn't exactly 1. So because our relation doesn't fit the definition, we have to say it's not a function. It's still a relation, still may have plenty of useful applications, but it won't be something that we can use, for instance, in a computer. Computers don't make choices. If you give a computer one input, it will give you one output. Whenever you put a computer in a situation where there's more than one output, you usually get an error message of some kind or a completely wrong answer. Computers don't choose, they compute. Here's another way to look at the same relation we've been talking about. If you look at each of the dots that I've drawn here, you can reconstruct the entire relation just by reading the coordinates off. The first one is 0, 1. That one's right here. The next one is 1, 2. That one's right here. The next one after that is 1, 3. And that one's right here. And finally, the last one again is 2, 4. And that one's right here. Each of the ordered pairs that we had from the beginning are represented on this graph. Now we use something called the vertical line test. The vertical line test says if you've graphed your relation and a vertical line touches 2 or more points in your relation at the same time, then your relation is not a function. Of course, if you draw a vertical line right here, you can see that this is not a function. This relation fails the vertical line test because a vertical line drawn at 1 will touch 2 points on the relation. So that means it's not a function. It's still a relation, but it's not a function. You think about some things that you're familiar with, and you realize that some of our favorite shapes are not going to be functions. For instance, consider the circle. Well, that's not going to pass the vertical line test, is it? So a lot of things that we're familiar with, a lot of shapes we're familiar with, aren't going to be functions. They're still relations. All the points on that circle also form a relation. There are lots and lots of points there to be listed. And in fact, we don't list them. We identify a circle using an equation. The point is, though, if it's a function, these vertical lines will only touch the relation in 1 point at a time, not in 2. So let's sum the lesson up. We've learned that a relation is a set of ordered pairs. Each ordered pair has an x value and a y value. The x value represents an independent variable. A y value represents a dependent variable. Some relations are functions, but not all functions. Not all relations are functions. A function is a special kind of relation where each x value is paired with only one y value. If you see an x value twice in a relation and it's paired with different numbers for the y value, it's not a function. If you see an x value repeated in a relation and it's always paired with the same y value, then it is a function. Relations and functions both give us two different sets that we can look at. The set of x values is called the domain, and the set of y values is called the range. Finally, if we graph the points in a relation, we can test whether it's a function or not using the vertical line test. If the vertical line touches the relation's graph in 2 or more points, then the relation is not a function. I hope that helped you understand the distinction between relations and functions and how to use graphs and other means to determine which are which. That's my first ShowMe. Hope you enjoyed it.